morning, friends. Warm welcome to the webinar today. My name is Dr. Mohan T. Shenoy. I work as a consultant endocrinologist in Trivandrum, GG Hospital. I will take you regarding the topic is regarding recent updates on cardiorenal outcomes with SGLT2 inhibitors. They are the new class of molecules used extensively in type 2 diabetic population. As we know, we are encountering a lot of patients with diabetes in our OPD, and these patients are frequently at risk of comorbidities. So this slide, we can see that all these comorbidities are happening in the classical type 2 diabetic patient. But you can see that in Indian population, the numbers are much more than estimated before. Previously, we estimated 8 to 8.7% in the general population. And now we are also seeing that 12 to 45% of patients with type 2 diabetes are in fact at risk of heart failure. Furthermore, 32% patients, that is 1/3 of the patients, are at risk of cardiovascular events, that is atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. 60% of patients with heart failure and type 2 diabetes have also chronic kidney disease. So this is a very heterogeneous spectrum. We are seeing an interplay of many factors, the oxidative stress, endothelial damage, and furthermore, the dysfunction of the vessels. So here we are seeing the dysglycemic legacy. So this point was emphasized by Kamlesh Kunti et al. In Primary Care Diabetes. It analyzes the reasons why which the cardiovascular risk outcomes are more in diabetic population. The sooner the patient initiated on the medicines which are preventing heart failure, the better is the chances of reducing the major vessel diseases. So this means that there is a clinical inertia involved in the primary care physician as well as the cardiologist and the diabetologist, in which we are able to prevent the complications by early control of the glucose levels. So what are the drugs available in our patient's choice? The first drugs which are managed, the first line therapies are the metformin. So metformin is the one which is preferred for the diabetes patient in the first line. This slide shows you the points where which we should consider: hypoglycemia, the weight change, the cardiovascular effects, and the renal effects. So we can see that SGLT2 inhibitors, the new drugs on the block for the last 5 years, have got a good reduction of weight with a benefit very clear for empagliflozin regarding cardiovascular events. And we are also seeing a good effect on the renal endpoints also. Of course, there are some studies like Credence, which I will touch about, which are actually used for benefit in the CKD group. Regarding the age-old sulfonylurea drugs, they have got hypoglycemia risk, they are chance of weight gain, they don't have a benefit regarding the cardiovascular events, but the cost and the need for the hypoglycemia prevention, we have to minimize these agents. The other group of drugs like DB4 inhibitors are the incretin molecule based therapies. They are attractive because they are weight neutral and no hypoglycemia. Of course, there is a small effect on the cardiovascular system, but the potential risk is there described for saxagliptin and alogliptin, and they are contraindicated actually in heart failure. Renal effects, they are neutral and they require renal dose adjustment except that of linagliptin. So the topic of discussion in this session for the next half an hour would be empagliflozin. This was the first OHA which was recommended and benefited, which was seen with SGLT2 inhibitors for cardiovascular mortality benefit. So this I am showing you the latest ADA standards of care guidelines for patients with indicators for ASCVD, CKD, heart failure risk. So one slide I am showing you the first line therapies of course metformin and lifestyle. When you have established risk factors for cardiovascular risk or CKD or heart failure, definitely we have to choose among the newer drugs like SGLT2 or the GLP-1. GLP-1 analogs are of course available as injectable only. ASCVD risk is predominantly there. We should choose again based on the cardiovascular risk. And when heart failure is predominating or CKD is predominantly, again the choice is between these two agents, and again preferably SGLT2 inhibitors. Only when there is a compelling need to minimize hypoglycemia, we are choosing the other agents. Here again, we are seeing the role for SGLT2. The compelling need to minimize the weight gain or promote the weight loss, either SGLT2 or GLP-1 receptor analogs. Now, the low-cost gliflozins are getting available, but definitely with the time, we will be showing that cost is not the major concern. We have to prevent the mortality. So again, this slide aptly summarizes the need to avoid clinical inertia. So what about the European Society and the European Endocrinology Society? The type 2 diabetic who are drug naive, ASCVD risk or high or very high risk, we have to choose among GLP-1 receptor or the SGLT2. We are also showing that when HbA1c is above the target, we can choose the metformin or add metformin. But now we are not using that predominantly because definitely we are seeing that SGLT2 inhibitors or GLP-1 are the second line drugs. But this recommendation from ASC, ASCAD was regarding considering type 2 diabetic who are drug naive to even start SGLT2 before metformin. So what about the cardiovascular outcome trials of glucose lowering therapies? So this slide, again, we can see the choice between these three molecules. Again, SGLT2 inhibitors are the preferred choice in patients with or without ASCVD, and empagliflozin has a definite edge among these drugs in established EVD risk. Among the GLP-1 receptor analogs, the patients definitely need to be motivated for the injectable therapy, and among them, liraglutide has got an edge with established risk. Among the DPP-4 inhibitors or the gliptins, we can choose any agent, but again, we should avoid them in setting of heart failure. So this slide is a very clear reminder that our choices definitely have to be rationalized. So I am coming towards the cardiovascular outcomes with SGLT2 inhibitors. So SGLT2 inhibitors have shown to reduce the risk of cardiovascular events. They have got a diuretic action. They have got a natriuretic effect, as well as they are having a fuel pump mechanism also. We are seeing the heart failure reduction is maximal in the EMPA-REG outcome study with empagliflozin, that is 35%. CANVAS program with canagliflozin showed 33% risk benefit. DECLARE TIMI, it is regarding the dapagliflozin, was showing a 27% effect. The point to note is that the population studied among each of studies were different. Hence, the hazard risk may be different from each point. So cardiovascular death prevention, again, the edge was there with the EMPA-REG outcome, and DECLARE TIMI was non-significant, as well as with the CANVAS program. The 3-point MACE, which is the composite outcome, which is actually similar with that of empagliflozin and canagliflozin. So the superiority is definitely there among all the studies with empagliflozin, which is the EMPA-REG outcome study. Again, I am showing a meta-analysis in this slide, which are analyzing the events with the placebo in the control arm. Hazard risk is minimal and better with the use of EMPA-REG outcome. It is the established CVD result. This is actually the only study which did a dedicated cardiovascular outcome study. And the DECLARE TIMI actually had a multiple risk factors and ECVD risk, which again you saw that the composite outcome was reduced. So we can see the p-value is coming to significant value in both the EMPA-REG outcome as well as the CANVAS program. Whereas DECLARE TIMI was primarily based on high-risk population, so that was not defining in that sense. So the consistency is important. When we have a molecule in the market, the value of the molecule is definitely indicated by the consistency in the CV risk. So overall, the heart failure burden is definitely improved with that of empagliflozin. We can see that without patient with heart burden also, there's a hazard benefit also. This shows that we can use the population, a diabetic population, which is a high-risk group. Definitely, we can choose the right patient for going for the empagliflozin molecule. How are the real-world studies faring? Because real-world studies are the molecule study once the market is already in the market. So the studies like CVD Real, CVD Nordic are all comparing the competitors like DPP-4 inhibitors, and also EMPRISE outcome comparing sitagliptin. These are all outcomes showing that when we have the second drug, definitely the hospitalization outcome reduction is definitely there with the P to odds ratio favoring the SGLT2 inhibitors. This study was done and analyzed by our own A.K. Singh sir from Kolkata. So I will actually go through one of the studies which has highlighted the benefit in the ejection fraction. As a class, SGLT2 inhibitors are shown to be beneficial in the patients with established CVD and reduced ejection fraction. But what the DAPA-HF trial did was, in absence or presence of the type 2 diabetes also, they had tried this molecule. So in phase 3 placebo-controlled trial, the number of patients was also good. That is 4,700 patients monitored for around 1.5 years. We can see here that the NYHA class 2 and above were chosen with ejection fraction of 40% or less. The molecule was dapagliflozin for 10 mg once daily compared with the placebo in addition to the recommended therapy. What I'm showing you is that the outcome of composite heart failure was definitely reduced, and primary outcome was having a hazard ratio benefit of 0.74. That is a 74% benefit is there. 26% reduction of mortality is there. And heart failure also, we are seeing a 30% reduction is there. And we can see death from any cause is also improved by using this gliflozin from the starting of therapy. So this study was conclusion is that among patients with heart failure and reduced ejection fraction who received this gliflozin, there is a lower risk of worsening of heart failure and better symptom score, and actually in the presence or absence of diabetes. But we have also a study with empagliflozin, that is the EMPA heart outcome study. It is a clinical trial, which was the first confirmatory effort showing the tangible mechanistic benefit, because the mechanism definitely in gliflozin would be to reduce the LV mass. And this study recently, 1 year back published, showed from India, shows that it is a confirmation that the LV mass index as shown from the molecular basis definitely highlights the role by which empagliflozin is a robust molecule in this regard also. So this study again was published and shows that the reduced LV mass index is definitely an important factor considering the adjustment with the other risk factors. So that is a 2.6 mean change also benefit, and definitely the regression was more and the p-value is highly significant. So another study which I will just show you is the EMPRISE outcome, which was the study which is empagliflozin compared here. So we can see that the molecule also compared the study with GLP-1 receptor initiators, and maximum among this group were also having liraglutide, exenatide, and liraglutide, albiglutide. So the study was showing that there is, compared to the GLP-1 receptor analogs, empagliflozin having a 26% reduction in the HF broad risk and 36% reduction in the HF specific risk. These are all the events which are estimating the ischemic heart disease and the heart failure, and the composite outcome shows that among the other agents, empagliflozin is a good comparator agent with the matching the use. So are these studies only applicable to type 2 diabetes with a history of MI or stroke? No. It's actually the patients even having other risk factors for heart disease also can be having a p-value significant. This study is showing the various patient groups studied with single vessel disease and history of coronary artery bypass graft and patient with POVD and history of atrial fibrillation. So these patients, we are definitely seeing that there is definitely a good role of hazard risk benefit. Of course, the p-value is not coming to significant because of the event value ratio. So the last part of the study is the renal outcomes and the metabolic benefit. So the study which was done, published and demonstrated was the CREDENCE study, which was regarding the canagliflozin and the renal events. This I'm showing you because the composite outcome was the prevention of renal dysfunction. So we are seeing that hazard risk, which is less than 1 and definitely favoring the canagliflozin, was seen in all the primary composite outcomes like doubling of serum creatinine and prevention of dialysis, renal death and cardiovascular death. Definitely the promotion towards the ESC, the end stage kidney disease was also there. So the highest p-value was seen with the primary composite outcome and also with the progression towards end-stage kidney disease. And again, here again, we have got the empagliflozin, which is the EMPA-REG renal outcome study, which is having a good sizable population of 7,000 plus patients. Here again, just like the cardiovascular risk reduction, the microangiopathy composite outcome, all the factors having significantly reduced, just like we are seeing with the current study. So the EMPA-REG outcome and Canvas program are almost similar. Only point is that they have done a randomization and they have done a follow-up, and we are seeing the progression towards the normo and the progression towards macroalbuminuria is also studied. So all these studies are very clear that it is like a class effect. The baseline albuminuria reduction is also maintained with the use of SGLT2 inhibitors. So the hierarchy would be definitely to choose among the SGLT2 and the GLP-1. Definitely when you have a heart failure, which is a risk patient, you would avoid thiazolidinediones. We'll choose an agent which is very demonstrable cardiac effect, and definitely insulins are having a cardiac risk. So we will not choose the patient who is very healthy and not having robust risk. Hospitalized patient, definitely we should consider them to be used, and insulin also can be combined. We are seeing that the latest EASD ADA consensus recommends that liraglutide as a choice of agent and GLP-1 receptor as the choice. So now I am showing you the composite cardiorenal outcomes with patients and all other studies. We are showing here the benefit with EMPA-REG outcome study as an index of the failure, the heart risk, as well as the progression towards worsening or nephropathy. All these highlight that there is a good risk reduction with the use of this agent and a good molecule. This is my last slide. I'm showing you the albuminuria and the renal risk. This is a post-doc analysis. I'm showing you this slide because there was a good reduction, independent risk of heart diabetes and cardiovascular disease. So friends, this is the final recommendation from ADA standards of care. And we are seeing that empagliflozin scores over the other gliflozins in the fact that it has got a uniform all-round effect on the ASCVD risk, heart failure, as well as on the renal effects. Additional consideration should be done because the patient having diabetes can have other risks and like UTI, progression towards the bone risk, as well as POVD. So the only gliflozin which has shown a benefit, which is having a least side effect, is the empagliflozin. So this is the final summary. So I have shown you across the spectrum that the major cardiovascular events are reduced with empagliflozin and canagliflozin, and definitely EMPA scores over canagliflozin in the patient with POVD, and the cardiovascular mortality benefit definitely is better with empagliflozin. And we have to choose the agents just like we choose our connection of our telephone, because we have definite risk with each connection. So just like that, when we have a risk patient, definitely as an add-on therapy as well as dual therapy, we can use this drug in flexible style. So again, it is an individualized approach. We should choose the agent with considering the pros and the cons. This is the last slide because we should not use the patient left and right. We should avoid this group of drugs in patients with complicated urinary tract infections. By this, I have seen patients already at risk for developing pyelonephritis, urosepsis like the elderly population, indwelling catheter, recurrent genital infections. Definitely they are not the candidates to be used. Men with prostate hypertrophy and women with urinary incontinence, there's a relative contraindication. Caution to be used is the patient with hypovolemia, those with less volume, those who are already on potent diuretics or NSAIDs, patients on borderline renal dysfunction. All these patients definitely delay this thing before we are controlling and correcting the volume status. A condition, namely Fournier's gangrene, has also been mentioned as a black box warning by which we should be exercising caution. So this is a wonderful discussion platform. So I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, And I thank the wonderful crowd for and I'm looking forward to an interaction. Thank you.
Sir, I have put one question in chat box.
I think chat box, I'm seeing some discussions here. Okay, Dr. Srikala has asked me, what is the initial dose of empagliflozin? Yeah, so empagliflozin is a 25 mg molecule. So initially we were using at a single dose, that is once daily, and definitely in the early morning, in the daytime would be the best one because diuretic effect. Initial dosage can be full dose, that is 25 mg OD, and it also can be given as a half dose. So it depends on the criteria in which we are using, and there is definitely an edge when we are having a stable renal function. So it can be 25 mg, it is a recommended dose, and it can start from half dose also. Definitely used as a once daily molecule.
Sir, there is no more questions. So can we wait for
Okay.
1 minute for
Yeah, we will
question?
wait for 2 minutes.
Okay, sir.
The point why I mentioned the reason for using a mobile connection is because sometimes we don't have the range in some areas. Similarly, we have some situations where which we have to use a connection without any choice. So that is the reason why I just mentioned that comparison. So just forgive me if the comparison was wrong, but definitely it is not to be used in every patient. It's only to be used when a patient is at a heart risk, failure risk, and the patient is not having any high risk factors for developing the complications.